Shit, we just elected a narcissist reality TV star as our president. What the hell is going on? Yeah. He paved the way for Yang. I like this man's thinking. So that's certainly my reaction. I was like, what the heck just happened? And this was like full stop. And so imagine being the guy who's getting medals and awards for creating jobs around the country and then realizing that you're pouring water into a bathtub that has a giant hole ripped in the bottom. Because I looked into the numbers, there are a lot of explanations for why Donald Trump's our president today. Racism, Russia, FBI, Facebook. How many of y'all work for Facebook? I know, it's been a bad week for y'all. It's okay. It's been a bad week, but you're still rich. It's okay. So those are the explanations that you get for why Donald Trump's our president, but they ignore the obvious one, the big one, the primary one. The primary reason why Donald Trump is our president today is that we automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Missouri, Iowa, all the swing states that Donald Trump needed to win and did win. How many of you all are from one of those states? There are people here I know. So if you're here from those states, you know what I'm talking about. You are like, generally speaking, the really successful educational products from those states, and then you went to a good school, and then you were like, I'm going to get myself to San Francisco. I'm going to make that happen. You know, and so you know what's going on in your hometowns around the country, where if you look at the numbers, if you look at the voting data, if you look at the numbers in each voting district, there's a straight line up between the adoption of industrial robots in that district and the movement towards Donald Trump. We're in the third inning of the greatest technological and economic transformation in the history of the world. They're calling it the fourth industrial revolution. And you all know this because you're building it all the time. Many of your friends are building it all the time. And it is not immigrants that are causing these problems. It is technology that's moving our economy to a point where a lot of Americans are struggling to get by. So this is the truth about why Donald Trump's our president. I'm freaking out in 2017. I was like, oh my gosh, we're in the third inning of this mega wave. The third inning has gotten us Donald Trump, and he is not the disease, he is the symptom. He's the manifestation. And so how do we cure the disease? How do we solve for this mindset of scarcity that is sweeping so many of our communities around the country? So I went to Washington, D.C., and I started asking these questions. I was like, what are we going to do? And the people in D.C. were, let's say, not helpful. The answers I got in Washington, D.C. were these. 1, we cannot talk about this. 2, we should study this. And 3, the most popular one, and I hate to say it, this is popular with many of your friends, we must educate and retrain Americans for the jobs of the future. And no, boo, I mean, obviously it's a beautiful thought, like no one's gonna boo that, like in theory. But then, except for this guy, but he was just doing it because he thought I wanted him to, so I appreciate that. It's like boo retraining, don't retrain anybody. So what I'd say when someone was like education retraining, I was like, do you want to know what the numbers say about retraining programs, how effective they are? They're not. It's like 0 to 15% effectiveness according to independent studies, and about 10% of workers qualify. So you're talking about a solution that will apply to about 2% of people. And so when I said this to the folks in Washington, D.C., then they said, well, I guess we'll get better. And then they just went back to their lunch. And I was like, oh my gosh, are we this far gone as a country that we can't even talk about the truth of the problems that are tearing us apart? And yeah, we are just that far backwards at this point. So then, one of the guys, and I thank goodness one of my colleagues was with me. He actually said this to me, and I want you guys to let this sink in because this is one of the most important things that's been said to me in the last number of years. He said, Andrew, you're in the wrong town. No one here in Washington, D.C. is going to do anything about what you're talking about. This is not a town of leaders. This is a town of followers. The only way we in Washington, D.C. are going to do anything about this is if you create a wave in the rest of the country and bring it crashing down on our heads. And I said, challenge accepted. So that is why we are here together tonight in this beautiful San Francisco soccer field, is to start that wave. Are you all with me? So what are we conveying with this wave? Because you have to have real answers. And if there's anything anyone has heard about me, it is this. There's an Asian man running for president who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month. And those things are all true. So the $1,000 a month, the first time you heard about it, you thought that sounds too good to be true, fantastic, like a gimmick, can that happen? But I want to go back with you down the history of this country. Thomas Paine was for this at the founding of the country. He called it the citizen's dividend. Martin Luther King was for this in 1967. He called it the guaranteed minimum income, and he championed it until he was killed in 1968. Milton Friedman and 1,000 economists signed a study saying this would be tremendous for America in the 60s and 70s, to the point where it actually passed